Hang on, it's uploading. Hang on, it's uploading. Okay, looks like we're good to go, and I will turn the floor over to President Walton. Hang on, it's uploading. Hold on. Okay, looks like we're good to go, and I will turn the floor over to President Walton. Hang on, it's uploading. Hold on. Hang on just a second, guys.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it on YouTube. It's on there. Yeah, Tina's not seeing it either.
Okay, we are checking to see what's going on with YouTube. We had a little glitch there.
Hello.
I think that's what was coming through. So there may be a little delay. Okay, well, we are showing that we are going live here on YouTube through our board docs Zoom. So at this time, we again will turn the floor over to President Walling to begin the meeting.
She's on the phone.
Okay. We are. We're going to go ahead and get started, but I did let Dr. Wheeler know to let you in if you're able to get. Okay. Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Neither is Tina.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, that was Ken. He was having trouble getting in. He gets to about 90% loading and then it stops. So he's going to try one more time. If you could just keep watching for him to try and come into the meeting, but I told him we were going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so now it's showing live here. And I don't hear any.
Okay, so we're going for take 2 here.
We seem to be good? No? Okay. We seem to be good?
I think we are, yes.
Where you have the broadcasting, AM, video, broadcast.
That you can't be in the same room and Zoom and look at YouTube at the same time.
We're showing
Yeah, it's live on YouTube.
not sure why we're getting the feedback.
Is Paul in the same room as y'all? He might need to mute his. It could be because there's two people that don't have them muted in the same room.
It's not the feedback. We're not getting anything coming on to YouTube currently.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Wheeler shows it live on YouTube, but when I'm on the channel, it's not there.
Okay. We just keep hearing-
I'm watching it live on my phone and it's working fine.
So Tina says it's on there now.
I'm still getting the feedback. I don't know what that's from.
I'll go mute his.
I don't think that's. Check. Why am I getting? I don't understand why I'm getting feedback off of YouTube. So as soon as I open my mic, it's giving a relay. Is that yours?
I'm muted. I'm not hearing the feedback now. You're good. You're live. No feedback. Good.
All right, guys, we're going to try this again.
Hey, Paul, mute your,
He is muted.
oh, he's not showing muted on our side. At least he's not showing muted for me.
I've actually clicked out of completely off of YouTube, and it's still picking up the volume somehow.
Try it now with his is muted.
Okay, one more try here. Does that sound better, everybody?
Yes.
We solved the issue. Okay, so for those who are tuning in, we apologize for the delay. We had some feedback and we're able to figure out what that was. And we are ready to go. So I will share the screen and one more time, turn this over to President Walling to start our meeting.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening for the May session of our Knob-Noster School Board meeting. We welcome you here tonight by Zoom again. Hopefully next month will be a normal meeting. I hope your families and you are happy and healthy at this time. At this time, we'll need an approval of the agenda, please. A motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I believe for this evening we have no public comments on agenda items. And we have no correspondence to the board, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Are there any questions on the principal and director's reports? Okay, well, we will move right into the MSBA report.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of May. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the digital divide facing many of our students and families in Missouri. Many school districts have turned to virtual learning to deliver education due to the coronavirus pandemic. But a survey by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education shows as many as 20% of our students do not have sufficient internet access to participate in virtual instruction. Commissioner of Education Margie Van Dieven tells MSBA that digital divide has been apparent for some time, but is now a bigger challenge than ever.
Obviously, when you're doing remote learning, there are many, many tools that we can use through the use of the computer, as we're doing today, having this face-to-face discussion. And that doesn't happen for some of our students who don't have that access. So I think that's one of the areas that we're finding the biggest challenge right now.
Van Dieven says there needs to be a statewide effort to solve the lack of internet access for many students and families. She adds, while school buildings have been closed, education has continued for students as school districts have found creative ways to teach students, even when virtual instruction has not been an option. While school buildings in the state have remained closed for the school year, the work of school boards, administrators, teachers, and parents goes on as school districts continue to find ways to provide education to students at home. The work of school boards and superintendents is especially important during the coronavirus pandemic, as they deal with decisions they never thought they would face. MSBA's Associate Executive Director for Leadership Development, Phyllis Parks, says effective governance practices are as important as ever during this time, including the focus on school district goals.
And it's those, the foundation of what the community expects from their school district, and what the board and the community and the superintendent and all the stakeholders have really come together to say, this is what we want to accomplish. This is what we want to achieve. And that should always be in the forefront, no matter what the circumstances are.
MSBA has posted a document on the role of the school board in responding to the coronavirus on the MSBA website, along with numerous other resources developed by MSBA staff and from other sources. Those resources are constantly being updated, so please check them often. In times of crisis and economic insecurity, rates of child abuse and neglect increase. Unfortunately, that has been true during this time of social isolation. Reports to Missouri's Child Abuse and Neglect Hotline have declined by as much as 50% during the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. When children stay at home, they are isolated from places where adults often look out for their safety and well-being, including schools, childcare facilities, places of worship, and other public areas. Jessica Seitz is the Director of Public Policy for Missouri Kids First, a child advocacy and protection organization. She says her group is urging school professionals who are mandated reporters to continue to look for signs of child abuse, even as they are teaching virtually. But during this time, other sets of eyes are needed as well.
We decided that we'd come up with materials and try to disseminate them to essential workers who are still seeing families, so delivery workers, groceries, pharmacies, those places that we are continuing to go, and maybe the only places that are open in our communities. So, if you think, who have you seen today? If it's only the mailman, delivery. So we realized we really had to get communications out there to try to get calls back up.
You can find more information on the Essential for Kids campaign on the Missouri Kids First website. Due to the coronavirus pandemic and the social distancing restrictions that have been in place, MSBA has canceled the in-person version of our Igniting Great Ideas conference, originally scheduled for mid-June in Springfield. Instead, we'll be holding a virtual conference. Details about that virtual event will be posted soon on the MSBA website, and we'll also be holding our June Delegate Assembly virtually next month, when delegates will be electing statewide officers for the coming year. We'll be providing more details on that event soon, and we urge your school board to be represented at that delegate assembly. You can watch video interviews with the candidates for a state office posted on the MSBA website. Plans continue for the 2020 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association for School Administrators to be held September 24th through 27th in Kansas City. We're pleased to announce one of our general session speakers will be former Kansas City Chiefs tight end and current football analyst for Fox Sports, Tony Gonzalez. The event will once again feature more than 100 sessions and workshops, many presented by school leaders from districts throughout the state, all in a new location at the Kansas City Convention Center. Registration for the 2020 annual conference opens on the MSBA website on June 1st. School board elections in Missouri were moved from April 7th to June 2nd this year due to the coronavirus outbreak. But if you did not have a contested election and were sworn in as a new school board member in April, don't forget Missouri law requires that new board members complete 18 and a half hours of training in their first year of service. During the coronavirus restrictions, MSBA's free Certified Board Member Essential Training will be delivered all online. After the restrictions are lifted, a portion of the training will be delivered online, with the remainder in a one-day classroom setting at locations around the state. You can register for MSBA's CBM Essential Training to help you become an effective board member of your governance team through the MSBA website. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
All right, next up is our superintendent report. Go ahead,
All right.
sir.
Thank you. I took some, we're actually going to combine my report with some recognitions that have been pushed off. And I have a video here. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this will open up to kick off our recognition.
Now let's move to the Chairman's Award. This team donated to a local police force to provide proper safety equipment and protective pieces, as well as partnered with the U.S. Air Force in designing an innovative solution for a recurring problem in the B-2 stealth bomber. They've worked hard to get FIRST implemented in their curriculum at all of the schools. 60% of the K-12 students participating in a FIRST program. The Chairman's Award for the Green Country Regional goes to Team 6424, Stealth Panther Robotics from Knob Noster, Missouri.
All right, so we do want to be able to talk about our phenomenal Panthers. Tonight, we are going to be talking about our Stealth Panther robotics teams. And if you think that's just 6424, we've expanded. We have team 38024, team 38021, team 16309, and then as you just saw, our chairman and winners, 6424. Our first team this evening is the First Lego League team, 38024, the KN Renovators. This group of Knob Noster Elementary and Whiteman Elementary students won the Core Values Inspiration Award at their qualifier to advance to state. They also won the Programming Award at the state competition. Team 38024 completed valuable work this year by proposing an all-inclusive park for our community. Before competition, students presented to the mayor and Knob Noster Park Board at the Board of Aldermen meeting and were presented a mayor's coin for their time and energy to research opportunities for this all-inclusive park. The members of that group are Charlie Caldwell, Caleb Dela Cruz, Kaylin Eubanks, Taylor Francis, Lily James, Riley Matthews, Brooklyn Salas, Dalton Tyler, Joseph Woolhams, and Ella Goodrich. Our next robotics team is the first LEGO League team, 38021, the Lego Sharks from Knob Noster Middle School. This team earned the Judges Award and advanced to state competition. The team members are Carson Gooden, Aiden Gutierrez, Kenneth Hartzog, Braden Kolpa, McKinley Leibold, Jacob Linder, Connor Morris, Zachary Seiler, and Trent Smith. The third team we are recognizing tonight is the First Tech Challenge Team, 16309, consisting of students from Knob Noster Middle School and Knob Noster High School. This team won the Alliance first pick, second pick of the Inspire Award, and finalists for the Think Award. The team advanced to the state championship where they captained the third seed Alliance all the way to the finals, where they lost in a nail-biting third round. Those members are Alex Adams, Adrian Aranda Diaz, Ellie Bradenberg, Nicholas Hannibert, Charlene Hills, Charles Jenkins, Jenna Moreland, Levi Parrott, Kaylee Prohaska, Xander Raymond, Isaac Smith, and Max Thering. Last but not least, our final robotics team we are highlighting is the first robotics competition team, 6424 from Knob Noster High School. Team 6424 won the 2020 Chairman's Award, just as we just saw the video, from the Greene County Regional. The Chairman's Award is the most prestigious award in FIRST. It honors the team that best represents a model for other teams to emulate and best embodies the mission of FIRST. Team 6424 had their season cut short in March when the Oklahoma First Regional was canceled. However, we are proud of the hard work and success during the build season and for their work beyond. Their outstanding work continued during the COVID-19 shutdown as they 3D printed personal protective equipment for our local frontline healthcare workers and many across the country. The 6424 team members are Alex Adams, Hunter Anderson, Adrian Aranda Diaz, Joey Baker, Mac Breon, Zach Blunt, Eli Bradenberg, Bryce Chauvin, Nicole Gillespie, Chase Goodwin, Nicholas Hannibert, Charlene Hills, Charles Jenkins, Brianna Mason, Ray McDonald, Kyle Mitchell, Jenna Moreland, Isaiah Nowak, Levi Parrott, Kaylee Prohaska, Riley Ann Schreiner, Max Thering, Matthew Timmons, and Victoria Vaughn. Congratulations to all of our Stealth Panther robotics teams in Knob Noster schools for your success this year. We want to send a big thank you to the robotics coaches who have led and mentored these teams. Mrs. McCloris, Mrs. Moreland, Mr. Meisenhelter, and Mr. and Mrs. Adams. Thank you for all that you do to make these students successful. And once again, congratulations, Stealth Panther Robotics.
All right. Well, we continue to be so pleased with what's coming out of that program all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. And we did find out recently that they are actually going to replay and reboot this year's season. So the robot that the team had put together, which was probably their most impressive robot to date, will be able to compete next year. And along with that personal protective equipment, they also were actually printing the 3D printing the masks, and did, I think, over 100 of those and distributed those out along with hundreds and hundreds of face shields. So say thank you to our Stealth Panther Robotics for an ongoing great work. And now I'll roll into my report. Tomorrow, it's hard to believe, but tomorrow will be our 2019-2020 last day of school. And it's a little bit of a bittersweet end, but certainly a year that will go down in the record books as not only challenging, but very rewarding for our students, our teachers, and our parents. We've come together during this last fourth quarter to really show what it means to have a partnership and strong ties with our parents, with our community, and we've been able to do some things that, frankly, other districts have not been able to do, and we're excited about what we've been able to accomplish, and really it gave us a good a good vision of what we can do when we're pushed to step outside of our comfort zone. So we want to say thank you again to the teachers, the parents, and especially the students for all that they've gone through to continue to work together with high spirits and mutual respect across the board. We look forward to rocking the block tomorrow evening. I know Miss Brandt has set up an event tomorrow night to go outside your houses and make some noise as we celebrate the end of the 1920 school year. So we encourage you guys to join in on that. Mr. Coron asked me to get my 80s hair band out, so I went ahead and wore that tonight. So I hope you guys enjoy. We will continue our virtual learning through the summer of 2020. We did decide that recently and have communicated that out to our families. We will run from June 2nd until June 25th with that virtual learning, and we're starting to see those enrollment numbers climb. They are a little lower than what we are typically used to, and I think that can be attributed to a variety of things, but we are seeing those numbers start to roll in, and we encourage the parents and neighbors out there to try to get those kids in. If they don't have anything better to do, we'd love to extend, enrich, and remediate learning for those kids during June summer school. We're now shifting our focus on our return to fall. Included with this report and later in the agenda, we will review a memo that went out to the community regarding our initial thoughts on the return in the fall, as well as some thoughts on sports. So look for that later in the agenda. The commencement ceremony for the class of 2020 continues to be at the front of everyone's minds. I know our students are anxious, and parents and community, to celebrate the class of 2020 at Knob Noster High School. Currently, we are still on that hold date in June, and hoping we want to give at least a 14-day notice before we pull away from that. So we have another week to 10 days or so before we make a change there. Should we make that change, we have hold dates in July and August, and those are based on broad community feedback from our parents. They wanted to make sure that we have an in-person commencement with our students and our community and our parents. So we went ahead and held those dates. And then also the popular choice was a Saturday evening. And we kind of shifted that away because the heat, should we hold that outside on the football field, as is tradition here in Knob Noster. So we will keep everyone posted, and as the restrictions are lifted, we will go ahead and finalize that date. Again, we're pleased overall with how the year wrapped up. Certainly not what any of us would have wanted, but we've taken it in stride, and we continue to work through this crisis together. Again, I can't say thank you enough to everyone out there that's has locked arms and marched through this together. Our enrollment ended the year right around 1,600. I will not be reporting attendance this month. Desi has offered a couple of different avenues on how we will count our final attendance for this year. So we will run those metrics and then use the whichever option is most favorable for our district. So that shortens that portion. For our financial reports, month ending April 2020, our balances for all funds, $19,571,800. Revenues to date, $17,060,553, which is 91.8% of anticipated. Expenditures to date, $13,581,423, which is 73.9% of budgeted. We have received our final impact aid payments that came in this month, so look for those numbers to look quite a bit stronger as we wrap out the year. We did have a conference call with the governor this morning, kind of projecting revenues and expected payments for next year, and we will be moving forward. He's gotten out in front and kind of communicated what to expect on that, and we appreciate that from the governor, and we'll move forward accordingly. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a second.
Second.
I think Paul seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, unless we have any questions, I need a motion to approve the bills as presented under new business.
Make a motion, we approve the bills as presented.
That was Paul with the first.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, next we have a coronavirus update. This is for information.
Okay, I think give me just a second here. Never mind. Okay, so just want to kind of go through this briefly. This memo was shared prior with the board, with our faculty and also with our parents, just with the most recent update. And I'll kind of paraphrase as we go through this, and feel free to ask any questions along the way. The governor's phase 1 reopening that took effect on May 4th remains in effect through May 31st. While we have seen the gradual reopening of the state, we have not seen that phase 2 be announced yet. Frankly, we were kind of anticipating that would come out ahead of this upcoming holiday, but it hasn't happened so far. So we look for something after the holiday, and we'll use that to kind of plan for the month ahead. As of right now, we still have restrictions on those large crowds, just because of the difficulty of monitoring and ensuring that we do that social distancing. So that has kind of been the main cause of holding off on graduation and some of the other activities at this point. We have communicated out to parents a wrap-up and property exchange, return and pickup that will happen next Tuesday and Wednesday. And our principals have sent follow-up memos home to parents to provide guidance on how we will do that. During that, we will enforce the social distancing, use universal precautions, and make some other recommendations on how to enhance safety. And then, of course, we'll do a cleaning of the building after we make that exchange. As mentioned prior, school will remain virtual for summer school, which will run June 2nd through June 25th. We provided additional details on the student monetary attendance incentive, as well as some exchanges that we will be doing at the kindergarten and first grade levels. Everyone else will hold on to their device, and then we will do a final turn-in on that June 25th after summer school. We are again seeing those numbers rise, and hopefully we'll continue to see those rise through the holiday and the week heading into summer school. Again, on the graduation survey results, we've covered that. We have those hold dates on June 20th, which currently is scheduled for our graduation. We also have July 18th and August 8th as those hold dates. Those are all Saturdays with an anticipated evening event. Our athletic awards banquet has been put on hold. We did hold a virtual academic awards banquet, but we are holding on athletic awards because of the number of physical exchanges that take place during that time. As of right now, our sports modified schedule remains in place. As we move through summer school with virtual learning, we are keeping our facilities closed to the public. We are hoping that by that week heading into the July 4th holiday, June 29th, we hope to have something new, some new information in place by then. If we do get some green light and some additional opportunity, we may open up some things before that. But that's kind of our best guess at when we might open things back up, and then look for practices and workouts to commence in July with some safeguards in place. Our meal distribution will remain open once a week. We continue to do a great job with our food service team. We will next week have that available on Tuesday, May 26th because of the holiday. And then we will roll back to our Monday schedule on June 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd. And then we're tacking on an additional day after summer school on that June 29th. What we do in July is yet to be determined. We may extend those food services in July, but we have not made that decision yet. And we've got to vet out to make sure that that will still be available. We did find out yesterday that the first Coronavirus Response Act is offering for those families that qualify for free and reduced price meals an additional payment that will be sent to them if they apply of around $300. So again, that's fresh. That was announced today, and we will get that disseminated out to our parents before the weekend. Our board meetings are remaining virtual, and we continue to figure out glitches, including what time we're starting. So I appreciate you guys hanging with me on that, and hopefully we will continue to move through this agenda without other issues. Okay, so probably the stickiest part of this update involves the fall and how we will move back into school. Right now, I've engaged with every week with a group of about 70 or 80 superintendents around the Kansas City Metro and this side of the state through the Kauffman Foundation, and kind of a think tank discussion on how we're going to go about reopening our schools in the fall. There are a couple of different things that will be coming out in a survey to parents here in the near future. One is that potential earlier start date. We were able to successfully persuade DESE to provide a waiver on the start date that took effect this year that restricted schools from starting before August 24th. We now can start as early as July 1st, and we will be looking at, we will survey parents on that. Of course, we don't plan to start in July, but we are looking at the option of starting potentially early in August. The thinking on that is that that may be a prime time and frankly the safest time on the curve of this virus to have in-person activities and learning. We do expect a potential second shutdown as we transfer into winter from fall, and especially as we approach that presidential election. We would be remiss to not recognize that there have been a lot of politically motivated opinions and positions on this situation on both sides of the aisle. And we are kind of anticipating that that may impact a second closure. The other thing that we're looking at is the list of recommendations that came out from the Missouri School Boards Association through their Center for Education Safety. There was a—
Now I can't hear it. Where the heck is the—
Oh, hold on. We found the mute. We are looking at that document from MSBA. It was about 75 pages long. And in that, they had a list of recommendations that were absolutely, absolutely thorough, and definitely provided some recommendations that were, quite frankly, very hard to attain and sustain in the school environment. That elicited a lot of different emotional responses from teachers, parents, and administrators. But that kind of was the kickoff point to really start the discussion about what is practical, what's attainable, and what makes an impact, a real impact on student safety. And those are going to kind of be our guiding questions as we go into the fall. We don't want to cause so much disruption that the solution is bigger than the threat, but we also want to implement those safeguards that make sense, that have a real impact on reducing that risk of transmission among our students. So with that said, we are at this time going to survey parents on a two-pronged approach, which would include a modified physical environment with common sense safeguards in place, and then also an option that would allow students to continue 100% virtual. And really, based on those survey results, we plan to determine if we offer both options and allow parents to decide. We do have some pretty good thinking around what that would look like and what that would mean fiscal point of view, as well as a practical point of view. So look for that. That will definitely be the work of the summer as we prepare for that. But this issue has continued to be dynamic and elusive, and I don't think that the next steps are necessarily going to be any different. So if you hear anything on that, we definitely want to keep those channels of communication open. I don't think that there's a perfect response or a perfect way forward, but we do know that so far the communication and collaboration and the feedback from our families has been the key to our success, and we will keep that up with that upcoming survey. Next up on district business and activities, we later in the agenda will be doing a second read and hopefully a vote to approve the preschool program expansion. We did recently survey our families and received around 150 responses from families expressing an interest in that program. Of the 150 responses, the vast majority are not currently in a preschool program, which was encouraging in terms of our ongoing sensitivity to our businesses that exist here in the community. But it definitely illustrates both a need in our community and on Whiteman Air Force Base, as well as the desire from parents to get their kids engaged in that preschool. Along with that, tomorrow or at the latest on Friday, we will be putting the final polishing on our MCAS grant to DODEA. We will be asking for upwards of $1 million to support the kickoff of this program. Certainly that would be another great booster shot for the district in financial support, but we also have contingency planning on what that would look like if for some reason we were unsuccessful with that grant. But we appreciate the team, Mr. Coron, myself, and some other educators that have helped us put that together. Next up, progress on our DSIP, on our ongoing conversation about a new high school innovation campus. That grant did finally publish around 10, 12 days ago. Actually, I think it was 13 days today. And we're wrapping up on a comment period. And then the final grant will publish, with that grant being due on June 26th. We are positioned very well with our proposal, with both the posture and the alignment to the grant, as well as the visibility and awareness that exist with those decision makers. And we will have the opportunity to request up to $25 million in federal funding to support that program. The grant is aligned and weighted in a couple of advantageous ways for us. The quality of life projects are being considered tier 1 projects, so there is a clear focus on quality of life. The ability for the local community to do a match is important. Although Knob Noster qualifies as a rural community and would not require a match, our ability to provide that match will definitely help us in the grant process. So we will be putting together that match as well. The multi-agency collaboration is going to be important, and we've already reached out to the governor's office, and we'll be holding a meeting with him after the holiday to get an updated commitment from him. We've already also been in contact with Representative Hartzler's office, as well as the senator's offices. So we have, again, good support in our congressional delegation at the state level, and we'll be talking more with our community about what this will mean for our local taxpayers. During today's town hall, the one thing that I wanted to emphasize and did emphasize is this plan is very much based on a very fair and very balanced assessment of what would be asked of our local taxpayers. And in no way, shape, or form would we ever ask our taxpayers to commit something that is beyond their fair proportionate share. We have pulled data on what this would mean for our taxpayers and kind of compared how Knob Noster stacks up to other school districts in the region. So we've been chasing this down for about 4 years, and we're in a good place to put this grant forward. Last but not least, just want to say a happy Memorial Day weekend to everyone, and especially to our men and women in uniform, and also in remembrance of those who have given the ultimate sacrifice, and look forward to pausing over the weekend to recognize those folks. And that is it for that agenda item. I think you're muted, Mrs. Walling.
Sorry, wrong mouse. I have two computers going here. Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate that. I think we're now down to approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We're on new business C, I think.
Oh, we are, aren't we? I'm so sorry. I thought we had already done that.
Well, I think I had that memo in with my report, so I think that may have been the.
Okay. Yes.
There.
C, June regular meeting.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, this is just a motion to reset that June regular meeting to Tuesday, the 16th. And with that election moving to June 2nd, we have the 14-day requirement to certify the election results. We have options on that to push that back or move it up a week. And with that being so early in the month and with the scope of work for that month, I'm recommending we take those full 14 days.
Okay, so we need a motion to set the June regular board meeting date to Tuesday, June 16th of 2020.
I make a motion to set the June regular board meeting to Tuesday, June 16th.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye. That's to 6 p.m.
I believe that will be a 6 p.m. executive session.
Okay, so I believe, if I'm correct, which I wasn't before, but hopefully I am now, that we are down to budget work session dates.
Yes, ma'am. As our practice here, we typically will do a board budget work session, and I have proposed, recommended that occur on June 8th, 9th, or 10th. Any of those dates work for our district office team?
Would it be beneficial to wait and do it after the election to have whoever's new on the board be a part of that? I'm suggesting.
Well, that's a great question. We actually, we could do a reorganization meeting. Or what we'll do, that we will know who is elected by that time, and we will invite the three candidates that receive the most votes. Actually, we may invite all four if they want to attend, but we will especially invite the three with the largest number of votes into that meeting, if that is okay with everyone.
Okay. So do we need to go ahead and set a date now?
If we could, that would be great.
Okay.
And Mrs. Walling, you are welcome to attend, but if you have other things going, we certainly understand as well.
You all know I love spending time with you.
We know.
But, okay, are there any of those dates that don't work for anybody?
I can do Monday or Wednesday.
Can anyone not do Monday or Wednesday?
Is this going to be at 6, 7 p.m. or what's the time?
We probably will go 6 p.m. if that works for everyone. We can push it to 7 if needed.
I think I'm good for any of those as of now, as of what I know now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the same way. As far as I know, I'm good for any of those.
I'm also good.
I'm good with that.
Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and throw out Wednesday. Stay in line with our Wednesday meetings.
Wednesday is good with me.
All right, Wednesday it is unless something needs to change.
Sounds good. So we will shoot for Wednesday, June 10th at 6 p.m. All right.
All right, next up, we're down to administrator salary increases. This is for discussion and information.
Okay, so this is a little bit different than what we've kind of what we've done in the past because of the work of the board over the last several years with that cohort comparison and what we've been able to accomplish. We've really been successful in establishing competitive salaries across across the board, which puts us in an opportunity where we can kind of look at an easier approach on what to do there on raises. What and we don't always tie administrator salaries to what we've done for teachers or other staff, but it is always something that we keep in mind. I did provide a document here that compares each of the cells on the teacher salary schedule from last year as compared to this year with the dollar amount increase as well as the percent increase per column. And then down here at the bottom, kind of did a total. The total is around just shy of 3%. The bachelor's was 2.5, master's 2.91, and then the specialist 3.37. And just kind of use that for comparison on how that looked for our other certified staff. I think the majority of our administrators have a specialist or above.
Dr. Wheeler, where does that put us with the cohort? Weren't we working on the specialist column to try and make it competitive?
We were, and we've been actually really successful in what we've done the last 2 years have moved that target, and it's been a long time coming for those that have engaged in collective bargaining conversations in the past. And while it doesn't affect a wide spectrum of teachers, it does affect our teachers that have spent the most time in training. So, and we also made that progress on the master's side as well. So that's good news. And based on what I am seeing and hearing from other school districts, I think that what we did for our teachers this year is going to stack up very favorably as compared to some of the other districts. That being said, and this really isn't an item for Teacher Talk, but it is a foundation that affects so many things. We told our teachers this year that we were in a good place with what we did with our insurance last year, with that renewal that dropped our premiums, and then this year with a very very favorable renewal, we now can kind of judge on kind of in arrears, and whatever happens with insurance this year, we will take that into consideration next year as we look at raises. That being said, we both continue to pick up that insurance for our employees as well as the pretty aggressive increase for our teacher salaries. With the COVID, we probably would look ahead and we may or may not have that type of increase next year, but we are still going to be at least 1 year ahead based on what I'm seeing with these other districts. I think several of them, even before or after COVID, have not taken as aggressive of an approach. So that's good for our teachers. Back to our administrators, it would be at the discretion of the board on what you want to do. There is a recommendation there under administrative content for the board to review. And that does include a 3% recommendation for increase for our directors and administrators.
Is there any outside analysis of what we've been talking about the last few years from any other type of, don't want to say justification, but thought process behind the raise?
We looked at the, again, at the, really what we've accomplished over the last years to get our salaries competitive. We have looked in our conference at what's being done in those districts, and this, I think this will continue to keep us competitive. But it's frankly, it's not the large increases that we've seen over the last year to get us into an area where we are competitive. If the board would like, I can do that analysis again and provide that for comparison.
I would like to see something, but it needs to be a majority of the board, I think, directs this. But I always think it's very important to make sure we're comparing apples to apples to that stuff too. So if there's anything we can do to help get that a factor in there, that would be one thing that I would definitely support.
Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions along that line?
Dr. Wheeler, when you did the cohort the first time, the one that we're using, weren't you comparing those to our conferences before?
Yeah, we have that 16 district cohort that we've kind of been used as our standard for comparison the last 4 years, and we did the averages at the bottom and had average kind of as our target overall across the board. So I should be able to pull that information again and put those metrics together if the board chooses. I can.
Is that kind of what you were talking about again, Larry?
I would say at a very minimum, I still do not think we are necessarily on all aspects comparing apples to apples. We are comparing job title to job title, but not necessarily the details behind that, where some districts have different org chart with different positions and different job descriptions within each one.
Okay, I was just trying to clarify if that's what you were talking about.
And that isn't something that I've included in the past in terms of comparing the job descriptions, and we also haven't included advanced degrees, years in the district, or years of administrative experience in the past. And I know it's been a point of discussion in doing that, but it's not something that we've done to date.
I guess.
No, go ahead, Paul.
I guess one of the questions I have is.
Hang on a second.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Paul.
I guess one of the questions I have is, we're not talking about picking and choosing who gets what and how much. We've done that in the past. I mean, are we just going to look at maybe the entire group of administrators and maybe just give them a raise based on, you know, what percentage. I mean, I think 3% is generous, but I don't know whether or not to follow along the lines of what Larry, I'm trying to understand what Larry's saying as far as certain positions compared to other districts. Where would you be at on what those people should be actually paid, or what kind of raise they're deserving of? Maybe I don't know if you know what I'm trying to say.
Can you guys hear me now? Okay. I think we would probably, are there specific within that group of directors and administrators, is that an across the board request for a job description analysis, or are there certain specific positions? I think, you know, I think some positions lend themselves to pretty consistent workload and job responsibilities, but maybe not all. And you know, there's some things. I think there's some things that would come to light in our district. Frankly, regarding what many of our administrators do when we're talking about, you know, comparing them to other districts, especially our size, and then districts probably larger than our size that carry some of those workloads. But again, I mean, my consistent position on this, on these conversations that have kind of continued to come up are, you know, I look at this from a competitive market advantage, and, you know, our ability to hire in talent. And if it's a teacher, principal, superintendent, tech director, I think they're going to look at the district, look at the reputation, look at the pay, and, you know, assume that a lot of the workload is going to be consistent. But again, you know, I'm at the will of the board to try to put together that analysis if required.
Do we have all the directors listed on here?
We don't actually. I think we have. Let me double check.
I just realized. I don't know if we do.
Yeah, Janie is off, but what we did because of the increase in what we did with the food service staff this year, we were going to roll her with that increase because it's a little bit more than what is being recommended here to the board. That would have been an anomaly in this recommendation, but that is the reason why she was specifically left off.
She was the one that I was thinking of.
Yep. The food service, as you guys know, was a bit of an anomaly this year with the adjustments that were done in that program. And my thinking on that was she's really, she's been in almost every single day throughout this whole process, and when we needed it most with our team. And I wanted to give her the more advantageous increase as we move forward. This is, we can do this as an initial read, and any feedback from the board between now and next meeting would be appreciated as we head into that vote.
So this is kind of just like a cost of living raise?
It's just a, I don't know that I would call it a COLA, but it's the raise that's being recommended that would align to what we did for our other employees.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments for now? Everybody's good? Okay, with that, we will go ahead and move on to personnel. This is a motion. I think this should be a motion to approve. It says April. Should that say May?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that.
I caught that earlier.
Did anybody else catch the Easter comment that I accidentally had in one of the reports? Mr. Cron did. Okay, so we have that amended to reflect May. We have our central office classified rehire sheet.
I'm going to step out for this since my wife's on these lists. I don't feel it's appropriate for me to be a part of this.
Okay, should we start with the central office rehire sheet or just ask for questions overall first?
Let's just do probably this one because I'll have to abstain from this as well.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with a motion to approve the central office classified rehire sheet as presented.
Make a motion that we do the central office classified rehire sheet as presented.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions?
I have to abstain.
Me too.
Okay. So we need to break it up.
Yeah, you're gonna bring it up.
Okay, so who are we abstaining for? I know obviously Mrs. Bolton.
Kelly Frieden.
Kelly Frieden for me.
Any other causes for abstention?
Jeff for me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I gotta abstain from Kelly also.
Okay, so let's do a motion first for Mrs. Bolton. If we could get a motion.
I make a motion to rehire Miss Bolton.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, and then if we could get the same for Mrs. Frieden.
I make a motion to rehire Miss Frieden.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
So for the first motion, we had an abstention. It was a 601 vote with Larry abstaining. The second motion for Mrs. Frieden was a 4-0-3 vote with Cliff, Larry, and
Clint
abstaining. And then the third vote that we would need would be for Mr. Davis.
Make a motion to rehire Mr. Davis.
Second.
Paul seconded that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So
Aye.
that will go down as a 5-0-2 vote with Kelly and Larry abstaining.
Dr. Wheeler, I'm gonna abstain from Sean Zink also because I don't know where that falls, but it's really close. So
Okay, so could we get a motion for
I
Sean?
feel I should.
Okay, Can we get a motion for Sean Zink?
Make a motion for Sean Zink.
Paul Birchie made a motion.
I second.
Kelly Davis second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that'll be the 5-0-2 with Clint and Larry abstaining. And now we would entertain a motion for the remainder of the modified district office classified personnel sheet.
I make a motion to approve the modified district personnel sheet as presented.
Second.
Kelly, Paul.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We had Paul that I think seconded that ahead of,
Fine.
so that'll be, go down as a 6-0-1 with Mr. Bolton abstaining. Uh-oh. Next up, we have the personnel action report for May.
I have a quick question on this one. Under summer school, we have a couple of people that are listed that I thought were like year-round employees.
Yes.
Do they need to be on there if they're already?
That is something we are recommending. There is going to be an arduous amount of work with extended school year this year in the special services department. And we're recommending, due to that work, a summer school stipend for Mrs. Bolton. And then for Kelly Frieden, she handles the food service on top of what she normally does, kind of as a support for Mrs. Sater, and does quite a bit of work related to food service that's a little bit outside of her primary role, and that's being recommended as well. She also does the summer school core data cleanup and has been assisting our counseling team with that for, I guess, since she was brought on.
And that brings in about $30,000 to $40,000.
Yeah, as Mr. Coron stated, the work of what Mrs. Frieden has done has helped us with that summer revenue, and definitely has made a tremendous impact on that bottom line for that program. I'm looking through to see. We typically, even though some of our secretaries, our primary secretaries in each building are 11-month employees, the district has traditionally provided them summer school stipends as well. So that would be in each building. What would be Mrs. Bivens, Mrs. McKeon, who else do we have? AJ Sowers, I believe, is on here for, yep, AJ Sowers for Whiteman, and Diane Clemens for high school. So those would be the 6 clerical staff members that we're recommending for, that are already working for that month, but that we're recommending for the stipends.
So if they're year-round employees and they're working extra, wouldn't they be eligible for overtime salary and not a stipend?
We have always treated that as a stipend, and in the district, and my understanding is that that does meet the that's a legally appropriate way forward to get that accomplished.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, I know Angela's on there. Are there any other abstentions?
Yeah,
Yes, I have several also.
I do too.
Okay, but we would still have Casey, Kelly, and Paul.
I have Rebecca Smells on there also. That'd be me.
And Clint and Casey both have several. So if we pulled Rebecca off, would there be any other issues?
Of that top one, I have Brittany Murphy.
Who had Rebecca Smale? Casey. Casey, did you have anyone besides Rebecca?
No, that'd be the only one.
So if we pull her off, then you, Paul, Leslie, and Kelly would be good. Okay, so if we're okay, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to employ Rebecca Smale for summer school.
I make a motion to employ Rebecca Smale for summer school.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
That it will be a 5-0, 5-0-2 with Larry and Casey abstaining. And then we would entertain a motion for the personnel sheet Form A as presented.
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
We're talking about the top up here that we're looking at now.
Well, it would be the whole thing.
Minus Rebecca Smale.
Correct.
We've already approved.
Right.
I believe the motion needs to be as amended.
We have a lot of abstentions on here.
Well, you guys would abstain.
Yeah, it'll be me,
Okay.
Kelly, Casey.
You're
and
gonna have enough to get this. Okay, go ahead.
So Kelly's made a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, Casey seconded. And then all in favor? Aye.
So that will go down as a 4-0-3 with Larry, Clint, and Cliff abstaining.
Okay, so we got everybody
Yes, ma'am.
hired. Who needs to be hired?
Well done. I do think, we're hopeful of that. We will see that summer school enrollment continue to increase. And if that does happen, then we may have some additional ads. And again, as said, that extended school year has been, we've really invested more than frankly we are required or typically do to make sure that those students with special needs receive the attention they need during ESY. And we appreciate Dr. Olofsson and her team for stepping up to that challenge, and most of them spending their June with us during summer school. If we do that, we'll go ahead and make those offers to take effect, and then we'll have those on the June personnel sheet for approval.
Okay, under old business, we have the K in preschool and early kindergarten. This is for motion to approve the creation of the Little Wingman preschool program.
Yeah, just a kind of a follow-up from last month's discussion. I know we kind of put this agenda item on back in April of 2019. Following that, we had meetings with leadership out on base to really look at the needs that currently exist, what students are being served out there, which students aren't. We've also pulled data again recently from a parent survey showing that we have well over 100 students that are currently not being served in preschool programs and 150 that are interested in being served. Just the context on this, we know that research continues to demonstrate that an investment in preschool is one of the very best decisions a school district can make in terms of setting students up for success. Over the last several years, we've continued to investigate the option of expanding preschool opportunities in Knob Noster and feel now is the right time to move forward with this program. Back when the district, and I don't know that any of us really were involved at that time, besides Mr. Coron, when the district went to the voters for the levy increase back in, I think it was 12-13, 13-14, they conducted a community survey, and that data demonstrated that preschool was one of the needs and requests of the community at that time. Since that time, of course, we've had a lot of different things going on in the district and a lot of changes, and we have kind of kept that on the back burner, moving it up to the front kind of last year, and then over this last year, really turning the heat up on this one. Something that's helped along this is the ongoing focus of our Air Force on quality of life in terms of basing decisions. They have taken an increased look at childcare and preschool and the role that that plays in mission readiness, in quality of life. And, you know, there are a lot of factors beyond just what this does to benefit children, but it also benefits that household income and the household budget. So it's something that has benefits across the board, and many of those that pay on for many, many years to come. The proposal is to establish for fall of 2020 a school-based preschool program for 3- and 4-year-old students, as well as transitioning kindergarten students who did not make the cutoff to enroll in kindergarten to prepare them for school readiness. This aligns to CSIP Objective 1.4, and the program will be enriched in STEM and health sciences. Specifically, the MCASP grant that we are submitting has an emphasis on STEM and health sciences with frankly, a primary emphasis on health sciences, which is different than what they've done in the past. The research also shows that getting not just the students' minds active at age 3 and 4, but also their bodies active at 3 and 4 pay huge dividends. One of the big focus areas of the kindergarten screening tool, the Dial 4 and the speed dial, is those assessment of the gross motor skills and the ability for those students to have spatial awareness and kinesthetic awareness. So that plays perfectly into our grant proposal with the introduction of this program. On location, due to the availability of space at Whiteman Elementary, we're proposing that the program will be housed there, just like our current early childhood special education program is, which serves both military and civilian families. For those civilian families that would enroll in this program, just like we do with our ECSE program, we would secure them base access to make sure they have unrestricted access in there to Whiteman Elementary. For funding, the district, again, is in the process of finalizing the MCASP grant to support the program startup. If unsuccessful, startup funds will be pulled from surplus federal impact aid funds. And then we also know that newly generated impact aid funds will follow those military connected students to help sustain this program. Military students enrolled in the program will be included in our impact aid application. Based on the current student enrollment ratios consistent with our student body, the program will break even no later than the year 3 mark of operation and will provide net revenues thereafter. We have a target of 70% military connected and 30% civilian, which is congruent with our overall student population. So that is kind of the metrics that we're working off of. As of this memo, again, we've had nearly 150 parents respond to the interest survey and expressing interest in enrolling their students in the program. We anticipate a fall enrollment of up to 150. We think it will be a little bit lower than that. And thereafter, we will look for that program to have the opportunity to expand. Simplified budget estimate. We are estimating around $50,000 of cost per section recurring, targeting 18 students per section, and we can run those in half-day programs. We are looking at full day as well, but we know for sure we will have half-day options at both 3 and 4-year-old levels. We have an initial estimated budget of $500,000 for 2021, which would provide 8 sections plus our startup funding. We expect annual revenues of around $550,000 once included in our impact aid count. Staffing proposal is 1 program director and lead teacher, 3 early childhood teachers, and 4 paraprofessional educators. And my recommendation would be to the board to approve the implementation and establishment of the Little Wingman program for Knob-Noster Public Schools for fall 2020.
Dr. Wheeler, I'm sure you've already thought of this, but what would we do with them if we had to shut down in the fall? I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be able to do anything virtually.
We are actually looking at the possibility of doing virtual with them. It is definitely not developmentally appropriate or ideal, but we have talked about that carefully and feel like it's something that we would be able to connect. Right now, we run our kindergarten students with iPads. We're looking at the use of iPads in this program as well. And again, the reason we kind of divert from our 1st grade through 12th grade platform with a Windows-based laptop is because that iOS operating system is so familiar and common with kids that grab their parents' iPhones or an iPad or other devices and start clicking away. So just to be clear, if we weren't in the COVID conversation, we would definitely lean more away. We wouldn't completely eliminate technology in this program, but we would lean away from that to more developmentally appropriate approaches. But in the era of COVID, we do know that we do still have ways to connect and give those students some authentic learning. And face-to-face time with teachers and peers. So that's kind of our thinking right now.
Thank you.
You bet.
In some of the previous communications, wasn't the class size limited to 8 per teacher, or is something changing here? I'm trying to put the numbers together.
It's 10 per teacher, but if you add a paraprofessional in there, I want to say you can go up to 20. We were looking at more of a cap at 18. And then we could run, so with with a 2-person team, we could run 36 per 2-person team with those half days.
Sounds like a handful with 3 to 4-year-olds.
2 was more than enough for me. But I always said, well, it's good to have 2 hands when you have 2 kids. That's not uncommon to see that in preschool programs, at least in the ones that I've been involved in. Of course, we want to, if we can get the metrics right and have the space, we would want to keep the class size as low as practical. But that 2-person team works pretty well. The half days are going to play into that significantly. And if we did move with a full day program, we would definitely have a portion of the day to nap for the students. That's a developmentally appropriate part of a preschool. So that's something that we consider as well. We have been in pretty in-depth conversations and had Ms. Tori Hunter involved in our conversations. She has previously been a director of a preschool and has really been a great partner to allow us to learn what we don't know. about preschool programs, and we certainly appreciate her involvement and interest in the program. I think she has spoken on behalf of all of our kindergarten and our early elementary teachers that they are very much in support of getting this early learning and helping the students be a little more ready for kindergarten when they enter.
When do you plan on making the decision over a half day or a full day over a half a day?
If the board green lights this, then we will take the next steps to reach back out to those parents and start aligning the enrollments. That would be another heavy lift over June and July to get that involved. And that's where we would again pull in a team to get things aligned. We know for sure that half-day programs will be in the mix, but we also know there's been a demand for full days, so we're going to have to vet that out as well.
What's the advantage of a full day? Just enrollment?
There are advantages for the students, but certainly the convenience, some of it comes down to convenience for the parents that are working and how you work that schedule. So, you can have I've worked in full day preschools before where you integrate that nap, integrate the meals, and you have twice the time with the students, so that's advantageous. But it also comes down, we're going to give consideration to family alignment and how their ability to get their kids to and from school.
And there's no transportation provided with this?
Not at this time. We are not recommending transportation at this time. I do think that there may be a time in the future once we see the net revenues coming in where we could consider adding transportation. And there might be an option where we transport from known locations, maybe some of our other existing preschools or a couple of sites. But as of right now, we're looking at not providing transportation.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great question. The restrictions on how you transport infants on school buses is quite a bit different, and it's something that we want to make sure that we're ready to embrace.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the program as presented.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, guys, that might be the single biggest vote that this board has taken during my time. We've done a lot of great things, but this investment is so important. It's been a long time coming for our community, and our team will commit to doing our very best job to get this thing off and running, and we're anxious to watch the little wingman take flight. So thank you.
All right, next up we
I
have
got
the,
emotional on that. I usually don't, but that's a big deal. So thank you.
congratulations. All right, next up we have the DSIP update.
Yeah, I think I overviewed most of this already. There is some information in administrative content for you to review. There's the ask from DSIP, as well as kind of a review of the presentation we had with the Pentagon last month and some of the things that we helped accomplish in the request for proposals. Again, this is due on the 26th. We do have quite a bit of information ready to be compiled into the grant process. We know that political advocacy and demonstrated support from the local, state, and federal level will be very important. So along with preparing that grant, we will definitely be reaching out to our state and federal representatives to make sure that they put forward as much endorsement and goodwill towards this project as they can. Of course, at the state level, our last endorsement from Governor Parson included his directive to directors of all state agencies to find existing funding to dedicate to this proposal. That was probably 18 to 24 months ago. We know times have changed right now and money will be tight, but we also know that this is a priority for our state to make sure that we are as mission ready as we can be. And of course, education continues to be a top priority for everyone involved. So we will be lining this up and getting it submitted and taking the next steps. Once that is submitted, of course, the board would have the opportunity to accept those funds and then move forward. So we can't have enough conversation about this. As this starts to filter out into the community, we do know that it will elicit a variety of responses. Some will be extremely excited about this, others may not be, and there may be some concerns. So as board members, if you hear that, I have two deadlines. I want to get the grant submitted to DODEA, and then of course get our budget aligned and approved for next year. But then from now until June 26th, I will be available and thereafter to meet with any taxpayer that has any concerns. I would ask the board to look at what has been shared. If that conversation comes up, look at what has been shared the last 4 years during our tax rate hearings. We've been very transparent and consistent in showing how our local tax effort compares to that 16 district cohort that we use for other reasons as well. And just emphasize that while this is a different ask, it is definitely focused on being fair and balanced to our taxpayers and trying to leverage our opportunity as one of the nation's 28 heavily military impacted districts to secure that federal funding to support what we do here locally.
When do you plan on going to the taxpayers with this proposal?
That's a great question. We know that this funding is, decisions will be, so the process will be closing of the grants on the 26th. During the month of July, there is a 5-member team that will be reviewing the grants and will kind of rack and stack those. And then those grants will be presented, the grants, including the list, will be submitted to Secretary Esper for his final approval. That should happen sometime in August. And then they will make announcements by, I want to say September 15th or 16th on final approval, and then funding awarded by September 30th. They do want the projects to be able to break ground within, as quickly as possible. It is multi-year money, but we would definitely want to make haste to be able to move within the next 12 to 18 months on a groundbreaking. The timing on that is really interesting. Everything in school administration says don't go to your voters during a presidential election in November. So that's definitely, chapter 1, page 1 typically. But in this unique situation, it isn't necessarily something that's off the table. Typically, we would go in March, and that would give us a couple of things. It would give us more time to communicate with our community and make sure that we, open up to opposition, which we expect we will have some. and just try to find common ground there. But also, hopefully by March, if that second wave of shutdown comes in, we'll know a little bit more about what's going on there. That being said, in the worst case scenario, if we didn't go to our voters, we would have an option 2 in place on how we would be able to proceed forward. Fortunately, we've done a good job as a governance and leadership team to continue to spend money on our students, but also build fund balances over the last several years. And we do have some of that excess revenue from impact aid that we've maintained on hand in capital projects that we could attribute to the project. So possibly upwards of 25% of the project could be covered from those excess impact aid surplus funds. So the remaining 25% proportionate share could come from a ballot issue with our voters, or we could look at some other alternative approaches. So big opportunity. We feel good about the feedback that we've received, but we also want to be attentive to those taxpayers. Everybody works hard for their money, and they want to make sure that if they make an increased investment, that they can understand the why and the value and the return. So we want to open up to those folks as well. So those are the options. November or March, most likely, would be the short answer.
Do you think that with everything that's going on with COVID, that the future of school campuses is going to look different over the next 5 years?
I would be really careful on answering that, but I would answer it with a, the challenge would be, how do we significantly make campuses look different? And with, I think we will recover from this as a country, hopefully come out better prepared to embrace this. I think the difference will be that virtual component and how we leverage that to respond to situations like this. I spoke at a national conference in February, right before the COVID hit, a digital learning conference, and the conversation was around the fact that we have the capacity to do this virtual thing, where the ability is there, we're just not doing it. And at that time, the talk was focused on the teacher shortage, the gap that exists, and how this could be leveraged in different ways. But the conversation has shifted to how how virtual can address this issue. In the design, we know schools will look different. I think that's going to be something that's really fun with our community, to look at how we use some of the new construction materials. A lot of schools don't look like the traditional original high school next door that's all brick and mortar. There are so many different building materials that can be used. And then on the interior design, how we create those flexible learning spaces that create open spaces that could be used in a pandemic situation, as well as something as simple as a media center. There's a lot of research that shows how libraries are evolving away from just primarily books into maker spaces and glass boxes inside those media centers that are deployed all day, every day for learning. So I do think schools are going to look different. And the one thing that now and prior to the pandemic that we talked about was designing a facility that will carry forward 50, 75 years and beyond. And we know that in that design, we want to have agile, flexible spaces that can adapt to new programming. If you look at what's going on with our robotics program, even with agriculture, when you look at traditional shop, when you look at business and how that's going to evolve into internships and externships, we want to make sure that we're flexible. And who knows what the next 25 years will bring. We were all supposed to be in flying cars and the sneakers off of Back to the Future. So that hasn't happened yet. So I don't think we can expect change to happen that rapidly, but we do want to be ready for that.
Dr. Wheeler, I'd like to think that once they find a vaccine for this pandemic, that maybe, everything will be somewhat back to normal. That doesn't mean something else might not be down the road for us as far as the next big thing that kills people off. But I'm hopeful that once they do figure out what they're going to do about a vaccine, that maybe we can get all these countries in this world back to back to normal. I just got my fingers crossed.
Do you feel like the time frame that this DSIP, list out, basically break ground within a year, do we have a good grip on a good plan, a good grip on that time frame?
We have done initial proposals with insight on what that would look like. There's no doubt that it's going to be a quick turn, but I also think that we've kind of been talking about this for some time now. We have some pretty good ideas about what we're going to do. The board has previously been engaged in some of the first steps that would need to be required to get that done. I do think the board needs to be prepared to move swiftly on making some decisions on location. We know we have a whole host of sites that we've been evaluating as a team, as a board, and all of them with unique considerations. But I think if once that site selection is secured and procured, we can move forward with this. The timeline is, in my opinion, advantageous to us. On the grant side, I think the competition for a large project may be less likely. So I think that gives us some strategic advantage. As mentioned, the quality of life is going to lend itself to these types of proposals and amenities. So that gives us strategic advantage. Our endorsement from multiple agencies gives us strategic advantage. We have some private partners that have at least pledged some initial small funding to show that private partnership, and hopefully we can gain more moving forward. If successful, you would definitely see me coming to the board asking for whatever it is that we need to make sure that we meet that timeline. I think that ability is going to be, I have confidence that we can do it with our team, and I feel pretty good about it. I think it's the right timing, the right opportunity, the right parameters, and frankly, the right deterrence for other projects, that it's a good time for us to move forward boldly.
Thank you.
Do you think that, I know Larry had brought up that there would need to be a NEPA, or maybe it was Ken that brought up that there would need to be an environmental assessment on whatever land is utilized, and that's a pretty lengthy process. Is there going to be time to do a design, a NEPA, and award a contract for construction?
That was actually, ADC did Association of Defense Communities did a briefing on this, and had the point of contact from OEA speak to that NEPA. That will be required and will be something that we will need to move forward with very quickly. Again, that underscores the importance of us finding a site, selecting it, and procuring it so that we can move forward with that.
This is Ken. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Welcome, Ken.
Hey, I finally got on. It's been a challenge. So I got a couple of concerns, and of course, I'm really in favor of a new high school. So let's everybody get that down. But I read the guidance on the grant that came out of our channels through the Air Force side. I am concerned. because this is going to be presented to the secretary. So the requirements that we have to go through in getting our projects approved and funded is going to be the same process, in my opinion. You need this NEPA document done right now. You don't have time to wait. It needs to be addressed in your grant package. Otherwise, you're dead in the water, in my opinion.
I will.
So I don't know how we can speed this up because it. Again, I think I didn't hear it earlier, but the NEPA process is not easy, and it requires some public comment periods. So I would definitely get whoever is going to do your NEPA work, I would get them on the job immediately. The board may have to approve of some expenditures for that. I really don't know. The other thing is that the design needs to be, in my opinion, for a grant package, needs to be more complete. It needs to be more than a PowerPoint presentation. Otherwise, they're going to feel it's going to be very important that you meet the August dirt turning timeframe of 2021. Leslie and Larry know how long it takes to award a project of this size, and I don't think you can award this as a design build. I don't know, maybe you could. Larry, you probably have more insight, and Leslie, than I do on this, and I'm not sure how you normally award projects through the district, but at least if you did a design build, you could get by with getting it out on the street with just a 30% design instead of 100% design, but it's a little bit more risky for you from a cost standpoint. So I don't know, that's my comments right now. I think time is really, really of the essence for you. And that would be my recommendation to you, Dr. Wheeler, and the board is you got to get going now. You got to go rocket speed from here on out. Otherwise, it's going to get in front of the secretary and it's going to go, well, that's a nice project, but it's not ready to go. I'm afraid that's how it's going to go. But so I don't want you to get caught that way. And I want to do everything I can to help you to get where you need to be.
We appreciate that, and we'll lean on you to help us. I'll reach back out to OEA and vet that to see, because they honestly, and if you had, I don't know if you saw that ADC briefing, but there was definitely a lack of clear, concise guidance on the NEPA, even with what agency would be overseeing that. So that was definitely probably the sticking point that really was left up in the air. But I agree with you. It's going to be a fast pace, and we've got to get this done. And that's going to start with being able to hone in on and procure the site for the project.
Yes. Well, I can help you there a little bit because I do have a lot of experience in NEPA. There is not, EPA administers NEPA. Okay. The biggest challenge you have to follow the NEPA process, but whoever you hire to do that will know that process. But the biggest challenge you have if you don't do NEPA is you end up in court. And that's the one thing you don't want to do, because there might be some group out there that decides, well, they didn't go through the process properly, and therefore we're gonna take this to court. That's your risk. You don't have to actually take a NEPA document and get it approved by somebody. It just has to go through the process, and DOD is not going to move the money to y'all unless that process is complete. So there is some shorter ones, and your contractor can probably help you with this a little bit. There's, you can go into a full-blown environmental assessment, or you can go into what's called a finding of no significant impact, which I would hope that's what you would qualify for, which is a much shorter period. So dig into that right off the bat. That's my advice to you.
Thank you.
You'd kind of mentioned earlier that you've been doing the analysis on the financial and kind of what the impact of the to taxpayers and alternatives. Are you planning on presenting that to the board prior to submission, or what's your plan?
I probably won't be able to I mean, I can give scenarios on that. We think that we have some pretty good ideas of what that would look like. The one hard commitment that I can provide to the board is that we would not ask more of the voters than their proportionate share. And we would also not propose and ask, I would not recommend to the board a ballot issue that would ask our taxpayers to pay more than the average of the region. We know right now we are about 50% below the average of what folks in Lamont and Warrensburg and Sedalia and Windsor and Lafayette County pay in local taxes to support their schools. And that's been, it's been a nice luxury for us. But we know that we would not ask, and frankly, we would try to move off of that average lower as much as reasonable. We think we can come down from that, but it would not exceed that average. And that's, that's, as I said, in the last, I think 4 tax rate hearings that I've administered, we've provided that comparative data and kind of had that conversation about how we rack up and stack compared to similar districts and frankly all districts around us. It's going to depend on what we get funded, and then of course what comes in at the state level. There would be an opportunity to go to voters and then roll that tax levy back. We have some statutory safeguards in place that would allow us to do that. It also is going to very much depend on growth. This is a growth mindset project, not just for our school district, but community. And we know that those additional students would generate additional revenue, especially our military connected students. And, that we would expect to see growth in student enrollment. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. It would probably be, the ask is probably going to be somewhere around 12 to 15 million of our taxpayers.
Over how many years?
20.
So I mean, there's several things that we've discussed in the past, and I definitely, there's a lot of programming and things that I think you've talked about internally, but I don't think you really have shared what needs or requirements this project is going to address specifically. Very general, and I would definitely like to hear those, because the devil's in the details there, and I just think it's very important that everybody's on the same page as we enter into this. I think it's a great thing. On face value, I support this, but there's a lot of things that can sway my opinion. There's a lot of things that sway voter opinion, and I would like to be transparent now and not that there's a lot of ambiguity, and we don't really know what we're getting ourselves into, and what does this look like if the voters turn that down, and just kind of the scenarios that we go through. I would just like to see some of that to make sure that we are poised to succeed in this, and definitely support a special board meetings to discuss this and that sort of thing. So just again, the devil's in the details. So would definitely like to see that. This in government terms, this is a very, very aggressive, especially without that NEPA. I've got a project that's requiring NEPA that is actually smaller than this, and 9 months is what they've told me, and I won't even share the dollar amount, but of just the NEPA process, but substantial, and so there's a lot of things that definitely concern me, but I definitely want to hear what you have and what you're proposing and things. I would like to hear that before you submit that, just so we're on the same page and transparency, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
If I could mention too, just really quickly, I noticed that it looks like they'll rank the proposals prior to September 23rd, and then recipients will need to accept the terms of these awards so the funds can be obligated prior to 30 September. So I guess to piggyback off of what Larry said, you know, coming up with a time frame on, we really need to get board buy-in and approval to move forward by this date. Basically a milestone chart. Ken would know what I'm talking about there, and Larry too. You know, a milestone chart of we need to have board support by this date, or maybe what we need to lead up to board support by a certain date. And then Larry mentioned a contingency if we go to the voters, and by we, I will be off the board by then, but for the sake of others, you know, what is our contingency if we go to the voters and that does not pass? Because by the time you get to September, if you have to accept those funds, but you don't have all of that other built in, then it could be a difficult bridge to get over. Sure. So probably some kind of a milestone chart, and then, you know, talking about when you're going to have certain elements of information for the board, when you're going to get board approval on this, and know that you have the backing of the board, so that you can accept those funds as of 30 September, if that were to come around.
Sure. I've you know, I've been operating off of the assumption that I had board approval to move forward in this process. I know Mrs. Davis, back when she was board president, we had this discussion under her leadership chair, that we had a letter from the board, and even prior to her with Miss Marion Matthews. Really, the conversation started at that time with the board, and, you know, has continued forward. So I've been operating off the understanding that the board is in full support of this. I hear some concerns here, but not concerns that indicate a lack of support, just making sure that we get it right. So I want to.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, we let me find out more on the NEPA. Again, we didn't get clear guidance on that with that ADC briefing, so I'll find out on that. I think we do have options. One of the big advantages that we have is, you know, what we've done with the budget in the last 5 years to have cash on hand ready to support some of the needs that we know we have. The approach would be a levy ballot issue, which is not a bond issue. We would approach as a levy increase, which would require 50% plus one voter, which I feel very confident that we as a team can accomplish and exceed. If for some reason we weren't able to succeed with that ballot issue, we have lease purchase options from private companies that can provide that option as well. I think the you know, it really, if the voters don't approve a 50% plus one vote, respectfully, the project probably shouldn't come here. But my pulse on the community overwhelmingly is that we would far exceed the 50% plus one vote, and that the vast majority of our taxpayers would be very happy to have, half to 3/4 of a project paid for by federal dollars that would hopefully have significant, broad, comprehensive, positive impacts on our community. The NEPA thing is probably the issue that I'm most concerned about, and then our ability to move swiftly on procuring one of the sites that we have been evaluating. I think that's going to be very important, and probably hopefully can happen in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
One more thing, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we are operating 4 schools, and we proceed into building a high school. We still will have to have a plan to operate 5 schools then, and to move forward. We can't rely on some grants. We could probably rely on, but we need I just don't want to lose sight of that we're adding a facility. That doesn't mean we're all our eggs in that basket. We're still going to have to keep all these facilities going and upkeep.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely part of the plan. We've seen our enrollment continue to increase significantly, considering the timing and frankly the availability of housing. I think if one of the side conversations we've been having around this project is trying to find investors and developers that would come into Knob Noster and put housing in. Ms. Miller can attest that we get calls during the school year almost daily of families wanting to attend school here and have difficulty finding a place to live. So I don't live in the Field of Dreams movie, but I do think that this is one of those things where if we, as a school district, will embrace our opportunity to be the economic driver for our community, that through this process that we can see our community change significantly from where it is and where it has been. The addition of the preschool is not a standalone silo decision. It's strategic in a couple of different ways, both in being prepared to put that space to good use when it's freed up, be able to expand that preschool into Knob Noster Elementary, and try to have the goal of serving 100% of the children out there that need that support. But also finding those new students, especially the military connected students that live on base, that are the lifeline of our funding. That impact aid funding is what keeps us afloat and allows us to do what we do. And that's the thinking. We have military families that want to come, frankly, all families, but we have a lot of military connected families that have been around the world, across the country, and recognize the opportunity here at Knob Noster, and being able to serve those families is great. I'm the Knob Noster superintendent, and if I can recruit a family from Sedalia or Warrensburg or Lamont or Higginsville or Windsor to come attend our schools and help us do what we do a little bit better and expand opportunities, that's what I'm going to do. And we've done a pretty good job of it, and I think we're just getting started. I feel like I'm interviewing for a job. Kelly might say it's almost exactly like my interview 5 years ago. So I think we have a good opportunity, and I'm counting on our board to ask the questions, get those questions to me so that I can answer them and help get us united on a couple of points, and put this thing together for our kids and community.
So I didn't catch, or I don't remember, are you going to present this to the board prior to submission, kind of the nuts and bolts and details and things?
Yes, I will. That probably will come Yeah, probably do that at that June meeting. We may require a special meeting to get that done. It probably, I would say we will do a special meeting in June before that date.
That's good. And so you're kind of basically assigning tasks that any concerns whatsoever, format that in an email or a visit or something with you. Did I hear that correct? And just to make sure we're clear.
Yes. But if you do have concerns, those need to come now and in writing to me so that I can know without any question or any surprises down the road of anyone that didn't speak up when the time was offered. I'm not saying that new concerns may not come up, but if there are concerns among any board member, respectfully, I would ask for those to be voiced publicly so that we can address them publicly in a transparent manner, and and take the opportunity to do that now. A stitch in time saves nine, and we're about out of time on moving forward on this. If there's any member of the board with concerns.
No, I agree. And just to make sure that we're all on the same page, my biggest concern is that we are all united and that we have a clear goal of what we're trying to achieve, and kind of formalize and basically put in writing, like you said, kind of what that goal is and the pathway that we're going to achieve that. Because I think that's there's a lot of ambiguity there without a planning document or anything that kind of outlines exactly what our goals is and what we're using the square footage for and what it is going to be, what benefits the community is going to have with this. And I think that's important both to a board and as a community member, that in the future you're going to come to me and ask me to open my pocketbook potentially, and I definitely want to know that whenever that question is asked of me.
Yep.
So that's my main concern.
I would ask you to, and the board, if any other board member has that concern, that document and the value proposition and the presentation and the amenities that will provide, that's been shared with the board multiple times and archived in our board docs. If there are other, it's been archived several times, and I would ask the board to reflect on that document, and I'll go ahead and email that out tonight. And actually, I'll go ahead and post it here to this agenda item just to keep it connected. But I would ask the board, each board member, along with concerns, to review that document, and I'd ask for you to weigh in on how you evaluate what has been proposed and what has been communicated, and what your opinion is on what this will do for our community. This isn't a one ring circus. This is all 8 of us and more that are charged with the challenge of moving our community forward. And I would be interested to see the assessment of what's been shared with the board and really what those personal opinions are of the board members, both on the concern side as well as the value proposition and what you guys see this providing for our community.
If you don't mind, I have one more comment.
Yes, sir.
So, but it's got multiple parts. No, so I really think, and I'm not sure, but But if it's going to be presented to the secretary, and that's what I understand. Is that what you also understand? Is that the secretary is actually, or some board for the secretary will review the packages and make the determination on which ones get funded?
There are 5 individuals that will be evaluating the proposals. They will come together to rank and file those with.
Do you know where those people will come from?
I know that we've met with at least one of those folks. If
DOD
not,
folks?
yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm going to try to find out. Obviously, there's some advantage to that. But those 5 will then make recommendation to the secretary, and he is to have the final say. And then if for some reason he feels differently about what is presented, or if there's a change in priority or order, I think there's an additional meeting or hearing, or not a hearing, but a discussion that would take place.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's his decision based on a recommendation from a team of 5.
Okay. The reason I'm bringing this up is these people that are going to be sitting on this board are used to a certain type of presentation when it comes to large projects. Yeah, and in my opinion, it's not going to be too much different than their evaluation of Milcon projects and the way in which they rack and stack Milcon projects. Larry has some experience in this because, of course, the Corps does all of our construction of Milcon projects. But I think, and Larry, you can chime in here, and you certainly know what I'm talking about, Leslie, as far as the programming documents that we normally have to submit are 1391 type thing. Now, of course, you're not going to produce a 1391, but I think that if you had a document very much like a 1391 and a certificate of compliance that normally accompanies those to those boards making that decision, you'll be in a much better position to be successful. And included in those programming document that is a 1391 is a rather detailed engineer's estimate. So are you going to be able to get a good engineer's estimate? I mean, do you really have, and the other thing that's really important in that package is a really good definition of scope. And when I'm talking about scope, I'm talking about more than just your bill. It identifies everything that's going to be in this package. Everything that you're going to spend money on, you're going to identify as scope. And then you're going to have an engineer's estimate that I believe should be in your grant package that will support the scope that you're talking about. And that's the type of thing I would definitely get your engineering firm on right away so that you have as good a package as you possibly can to put in front of these folks. That's all I got.
And I'll kind of tie what Ken just said to what Larry just said on it, and it's probably, a lot of this is probably what we're just used to seeing working on base in the construction world. But so when Ken hit on scope, that's kind of, I'm kind of tying that to what Larry said on, you know, where's the details of what we are including in this, or what maybe what we're proposing. So we know we want a high school. That's number one. And then maybe an offshoot of that, we know we want a performing arts center, and that's an offshoot, you know, and then another. And so just a list of items, while it tells us something, it doesn't really go into the detail that I think we would be expecting for a project this large and for that would go into a grant package. And so, yes, you have communicated, you know, the different things that we're looking at, but really it's the scope behind that. What's brought us to deciding that, what's going to go into that, what are we going to, how are we ranking all of that, where funding is concerned and things like that. So there's just a lot more details there.
Sure. Yeah, I actually have that on hand from an initial scope of work on hand from Insight with cost estimates and the target, which I can share with the board. The issue is it's it's going to be an estimate until we secure a site, and the site is going to drive those final cost estimates, and also that NEPA project or assessment. So if the board is, if there's an opinion, I know we've reviewed sites. I think we narrowed down to probably two of the best options. That we probably need to have this conversation in executive session, because I know there was a third and fourth that could possibly work. But I do think moving forward on procurement makes sense at this time, so that we can get those numbers hardened, get the EPA assessment completed.
So Dr. Wheeler, are you needing a vote of support to move forward on procuring property tonight?
No, ma'am. No, but I do think that if we want to make haste, we probably should consider a special meeting to have that conversation, and in executive session, so that we can move down that road. I don't think I don't feel comfortable asking for that motion or getting that direction without a follow-up discussion to our last real estate conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, we've had a lot to talk about here. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments?
Do you have a thought on when we will have that meeting?
I'm good anytime after Friday. You guys want to try to set something for next week? And I don't think that this would be a lengthy conversation. Well, I wouldn't anticipate that it would be a lengthy conversation.
I'm okay. Any day but Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah, I'm good with Wednesday.
I don't have anything planned that I know of right now, but I kind of need more details to know exactly what I can do.
So
I should be available next week, as far as I know.
Wednesday would work good for me, as far as I know.
Wednesday works for me also.
Clint, you good? Okay.
Okay, so you guys want to do 6 o'clock?
Good for me.
Okay, so next Wednesday at 6 o'clock, we will look for an opportunity to follow up on our last discussion. Since it is going to be an executive session, we will want to do that in person, and we will set that up in a space that will allow for appropriate social distancing.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
All right, we're going to move on to the exit interview instrument, if I am on the right part of our agenda.
Yes, ma'am. And this is up for action, second reading, and
Motion to approve.
yeah, aligns to superintendent evaluation.
Do we have any questions or concerns about this document? If not, I need a motion to approve the exit interview instrument as presented, please.
I make a motion to approve the exit interview.
Need a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, before we adjourn, we kind of skipped, or I skipped, a pretty significant vote tonight, which was the hiring of our new Knob Noster Elementary principal, Mr. Doug Brown. We are incredibly excited to have the opportunity to, not to just have had the opportunity to hire back a Knob Noster graduate into our administrative ranks, but to grow him and promote him into a very, very high performing building to follow a highly capable leader. And we have absolutely full confidence in his ability to carry forward the great things going on at K&E. We have had a very strong response to our vacancy posting for middle school principals. We know that we have a couple of great candidates that we will be making a decision on hopefully in the next week or so to go ahead and fill that vacancy. But just want to say congratulations before we wrap up to Mr. Brown. And I know it's bittersweet for the middle school to lose him, but I know K&E is excited, and middle school has done a good job of helping develop him. So carry on, K&E.
Okay, so did you say we needed a motion for that?
No, ma'am. I would just, I didn't point it out, and anytime we hire a building leader, it's a big decision, and just wanted to give him a thumbs up.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. So we've done the exit interview. So now I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Oh, welcome Doug Brown. I apologize. I'm jumping ahead. Welcome, sir, to K&E. I know you'll do great. Now we'll go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Does this have to be by roll call? I think I ask that every month. All right, by roll call. Casey?
Aye.
Kelly? Paul?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Clint?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And I. All right, thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
We'll see you
Thanks
next
for
week.
joining us tonight.
Have a great holiday.
All right, you too. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you later.